Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday evening, October 22nd, Human Services Committee meeting with myself as chair. Councilors Charest, Gould, Melville, and Mitsoulas are all present here this evening as well. And we have two items to discuss this evening. One is a brief overview from our veterans agent, Steve Patton, on all the great things that have been going on with the veterans program and any needs that they've had come up over the very difficult year that we have. And also an overview from Jared Hockman regarding the No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody program, and to get a similar update on the many things that have been going on with his program over the years. So with that, if I could open it up with to Steve Patton to just give us an overview of what's going on with your program and all our great veterans. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. It's always fantastic coming to speak with you. Always a privilege and a great opportunity to share what we have going on with our veterans. So the pandemic hit, and as it was for everyone, it was really hard on the veteran group that we serve. A lot of them were afraid to go to stores, they're afraid to go shopping, just do the things we take for granted every day. But truly, somebody who stepped up and made a lot of things happen for us was Carolyn Nguyen at the Council on Aging. And she took a list that Lisa Levitt, my assistant, and I put together of veterans that needed food. Jared Hockman was also really helpful, reaching out to help us out with that. And what they did was they delivered food right to the veterans' doors, frozen foods, enough for like about 8 days. So that was really helpful. Unfortunately, we have stopped our ride program temporarily. It's on a hiatus because we don't want to be putting our average age of our drivers is over 65, and our average passenger is at least over 65. And that being the case, we don't want them for an extended period of time, such as driving into Boston for an hour or even down to Bedford and back in that close quarters. So we've paused that for a short period of time. We've had only about 2 or 3 calls. I think people are still a little bit frightened. Everything pretty much came to a grinding halt. Slowly, our claims business for our disabilities claims opened up. And that honestly is feeling like it's back to normal. I think a lot of people are feeling more comfortable. We're really not having too many meetings in City Hall. We do have the conference room, and they set up the IT department set up a great system for everyone in City Hall to utilize that space if they want to. The veterans are pretty comfortable right now meeting us out on the sidewalk to transfer papers, or if they need to come in and sign something, they can certainly do that with an appointment. We just book the room, we clean it before they come in, and we clean it after they leave. So, and we have a one-way walking system through the basement of City Hall, so it's working really well with that. So people, I think their needs are being met. I don't have any cases where people are going without. The senior center, as far as the rides go, they do have their buses going. I think it's a little bigger and maybe people feel more comfortable, but certainly people still have to get around. I will tell you, before the pandemic hit, the car that you got, Councilor Manning Martin, the vehicle that you helped secure for us from that anonymous donor was doing phenomenal. And people loved it, and they're so proud of it, and they're so proud to ride in it, and the drivers were proud to drive it. So we're hoping, if things go the right way come spring, or whenever it turns around, we want to get back to doing that, because the drivers love driving and people really like the service. The only other thing I can really add tonight that's new is the monuments in front of City Hall. There's 5 of them. I was out there last week, and they are there's some type of almost like black algae in front of some of them. They definitely have been weathered a little bit. So I spoke to O'Rourke's brothers, and we're going to have them clean all 5 monuments for Veterans Day. So when everyone's out there, yourself included, we'll be excited to be in front of nice, clean monuments for Veterans Day to be proud of when we have our event. But that's it.
Thank you, Steve. Councilor Melville?
Thank you very much. Councilor Manning Martin, and I thank you for having this this hearing tonight. Steve, just a question for you. Where are you seeing? So, what are you seeing for like Chapter 115 benefits that have been sent out? Is it? I'm assuming that with the economic situation, I would assume that would have picked up. Is that the case?
It did a little bit. There were a lot of people who were working, lost their jobs. We helped them out for a short period of time, but they've rejoined the workforce. So there was definitely a little uptick in that. But I'd say it's about business as usual. We're constantly getting new people from other cities. We have a new person from Lynn this week, and we had a new person from Chelsea about 2 weeks ago.
Great, thank you. And also, just, I don't know what their experience has been thus far for any of the veterans regarding their appointments at the VA, but I've been very impressed with the VA's telehealth, where they're doing basically virtual, you can have your annual, if you don't have any reason to be in the actual facility, you can meet with your doctor via, through the VA in a secured link. I found it to be pretty easy. I'm sure it can be challenging to folks that aren't as used to using technology, so I'm sure if anybody wants to reach out to you, you'd be able to help them out with that in case they can't get into Jamaica Plain or Bedford for their appointment. But and also the prescriptions, they're mailing the prescriptions and they're coming, and it's been a really good thing for any veterans out there that they can get their prescriptions through the mail. I found it to be very convenient and safe. So.
Yeah, people are really loving that, the mail-in medication. And then even for the claims, the VA wanted to outsource claims anyways, rather than doing it in-house at the actual VAs, the physical buildings. So they're outsourcing that to private contractors anyways. And all the PTSD across the board is being done virtually, which is great. We've had many claims and all positive reports from that. I haven't had anyone have a hard time getting on. The people who might not be as technically inclined, they're getting at least a month's notice. So they're prepared when that comes up, and we're making sure they get whatever IT help they need. But thanks for bringing that up. That was a really good point.
And that's it for thank you very much, through the chair.
Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Thank you, Mr. Patton, for joining us this evening and for the update. Just a quick question. You had mentioned the volunteer shuttle program has been put on hold because the age demographic of most of the drivers might not be at an age where they would feel comfortable given the pandemic. Is there a need that's being unmet, and might there be an opportunity to get perhaps some younger folks that might be working from home or have some more availability currently, or is the need currently being met? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. I definitely think we could use some younger people who might be more comfortable driving in the interim. I wouldn't say it's totally not being met, but I mean, if one veteran doesn't have their needs met, then the needs aren't being met. So I think that's a great point. I think if anyone out there watching would like to drive, it's a very simple process. Thank you so much, because I think that would be very helpful. Overall, the VAs, they totally shut down for most of this time, so they weren't having people there anyways. But now that they're starting to open up and they are starting to have some appointments, I'd say we probably had, again, 2 or 3 calls, and that was fairly recent in the last couple of months. But there's definitely, and then word travels and people talk. So I do think that if we were able to secure a few young drivers, even just 2 or 3, it's not going to be that often. It's not going to eat that much into people's schedules, but it is invaluable for what it would do for these people who just can't get to the medical services. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for everything that you're doing for our veterans. And I'd be happy to follow up with you separately. I'd be more than happy. Also, Councilor Manning Martin, to help with that if I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Later on this evening, approximately a half hour, we're actually going to have a discussion on affordable housing. And I guess my question, I can't breathe with this mask on. I guess my question to you is, with regard to veterans housing, do you see a large call for need for veterans housing in this city? Do you get many requests for assistance with that, whether it be young veterans just exiting the service or older veterans? And beyond that, can you educate me a bit on where veterans housing is available within the city of Peabody?
Okay, so the answer to the first question is massive. There's a massive need for it, not just in Peabody. There's a massive need statewide. Right now, if you're a veteran and you need veterans housing provided by a city or town, the only two places I know you can go are Beverly and up in Haverhill. And Haverhill is by a nonprofit. They own about 26 houses up there. We actually have, sadly, had people who are staples in the Peabody area their whole lives who have had to move to Haverhill because they're the ones offering the housing, and they even have a food pantry that they open up and people can bring boxes of food from there. But the other one is Beverly, and it has been filled, at least for the 4 years I've been at City Hall. It's been filled. So right now in Peabody, there is no veterans housing. So right now what people do is if they need somewhere to live, then we can talk to NASCAP down on Foster Street, and they can help find some housing for the veterans. But a lot of times there isn't any available. So we need the veteran, honestly, on Chapter 115, we agree to pay first, last, security, and then what happens is the veteran has to work something out with the landlord, bring us a lease. I will say right now one of the biggest problems that we have is the VFW has been around for about 100 years in the city, and they got hit particularly hard by the pandemic. They need financial help, serious financial help. We've reached out to countless people, and they're in jeopardy of closing their doors. I'd say they're heads above water, but not by a lot. And one of the ideas we had was maybe working with community development to actually, there's no historical value to the building, but they've been there forever. So they're looking to maybe turn a corner and start a new chapter in their history. And what we were thinking of doing is if we could find the right developer willing to demo the VFW, and the land next to it's been for sale for endless, long time. And there would be enough room to put a building for veterans housing, how many of the units you want, and then right next to it, put a new small, modest but nice VFW building. So that is something that, the commander of the VFW, Harry Gardner, and I have discussed, and we've been meeting to get together and start talking to community development, but we don't really know. I know nothing about it. Come right out and say that. And I don't think Harry knows much more. He's a former police officer in the city, retired from Peabody. And so they're in desperate need of financial help to keep the doors open, and by giving them a new start and putting some housing there, we could really help a lot of veterans. I can't tell you how many times. One of the worst thing is too, you have families that call you up on a Friday, and the state does allow us to put them up in a hotel for a couple of days. And around the holidays, it seems to happen every year. If we had any veterans housing in Peabody, where we had units where we could move families in, some families are, we had a woman veteran and her two children, and they had nowhere to go. So there's definitely a need. Sorry to be long-winded on that one.
No, thank you very much. The answer was very telling. I think it will likely be a discussion in our next hearing on industrial community development. So I thank you very much for being so thorough with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Gould, and then Councilor Matsoulis. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Councilor Manning. Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Thank you for having this meeting tonight to talk about a need that is really a great need. Councilor Welton, thank you for bringing up the issues. Captain Patton, if somebody wanted to help, you have probably folks at home watching that would like to either donate or spend some time. Can you give them a phone number or an email address?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, I've had it on my business card for 4 years, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to say it. I'm going to go on a limb and say my cell phone number is 978. That's okay. I got no problem. 978-223-8196. And I'm happy. That's again 978-223-8196. I can't tell you how many times I'm watching TV on my couch and I get emails, and it's it's so easy. The phone's in your hand already, just to respond to the email. So it works nice.
And if people want to give, we take financial donations or other means to help.
Absolutely. We have a nonprofit account, 503C, I think it is, at City Hall, and that's fantastic. We had a really good feel-good story. We had the Puritan Lawn. We started. I spoke to Cheryl Poppy, who is now the Secretary of Veterans Affairs in the state. But when she was running the Chelsea Soldiers Home, I talked to her, and she said, you're supposed to be flagging all the graves within your geographic boundary, not just the public graves for veterans around Memorial Day. So we started doing that. The people were so happy over at Puritan Lawn that the people who have loved ones there, that they started making donations. So we're actually able to donate the money we got from that event to the VFW, which helped them pay the back bills that they're already behind on. So,
thank you, Captain Patton. No further questions. Thank you, Councilor Manning.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor Matsoulis.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Steve, welcome, and it's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while to talk to you. But when you started a little earlier, you mentioned the Council of Aging. And I consider all the volunteers down there, the workers down there as angels. And I put you and your organization in that same category, Steve, because I have sent many veterans to see you, and you know that. And you have taken care of everyone I have sent down there, whether it was housing or to get their teeth fixed, or hearing aids, or whatever the benefits they had coming to them. You made sure they got them. And I got to tell you, they come back and thank me. They should be thanking you. When I heard you were coming on tonight, I just had to come and mention this. It was this time last year that I had gone to see you, and I had mentioned about a friend of mine who was in Mass General. He was he had a very serious illness, and I had no transportation to get there. And I was really kind of desperate because he was my best friend. Well, anyways, and he was one of the last Green Beret and Special Forces kids in this city. When I say kids, I mean men. He was a real good friend of mine. His name was Raymond Luce. Yeah, you know that, and I do too. And the thing that you did for me that I really appreciate, and I'm mentioning this only for the public to know this, it was a Saturday, and you volunteered to bring me there before noon. You picked me up, you and I drove in, and when we got to Mass General, to the hospital, you went and you pulled him aside, and I don't know what it was you said to him, that's something I gave to him that was something special between you and him. But I will tell you that really put a glow in his life. It really did. And myself too. And I felt so proud that I brought you. And you also volunteered to pick me up the next day. I spent the night in the hospital. You picked me up the next morning. And Steve, I don't know if people know that you do things like that. That's why I say when I say that I put you people in the category of angels that help people. And for that, I want to thank you. And I think it's pretty obvious by listening to the rest of the crew that spoke this evening. We're all out there to support you, whatever you need, whatever issue it is that you're working on, or you need help on, whatever endeavor it is, we're there to support you. I know I am. So, and I'm sure I speak for the rest of the group here. So with that, I say thank you, Steve.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Matsoulis. And with that, I think it's couldn't be better said than what Councilor Matsoulis has said, in which is why we continue to have you come up a couple of times a year, Steve, to tell us all the good things that you're doing, all the help that you're providing, and to request of the council and the community to do what we can to support you supporting veterans. And as Councilor Mitsula says, that's what we're here for. So I know that we've talked about a couple of your needs this evening. Last time you were up, or maybe the time before, you left with a new car. So you never know what this community can do when we all put our heads together and put our shoulder behind needs. And certainly, we're all, as Councilor Mitsula said, we're all behind our veterans. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you again for everything that you're doing. Keep up the good work, and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, and thank you all very much for everything you do. You're on the side of the Angels, and you come there, and it's selfless service you all do, and it's so critical to the city. So thank you so much, and you all deserve a pat on the back. Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is to hear a review as well from No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody, and Jared Hockman is here to present that to us. As we know, with the pandemic, as with our veterans and many other services, lots of things have risen to the surface and been highlighted throughout this pandemic, and certainly food insecurity is one of them. So with that, Mr. Hockman, if you would please.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin, and thank you to the city councilors. It's an honor to be before you tonight. I appreciate the invitation. No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody is a program that started in September of 2017, when we realized that there are students in the Peabody public school system that suffer from food insecurities. They simply lack food on weekends. And we started a program that would provide students who are identified by school department staff who suffer from this food insecurity. We would provide food to them every week in a backpack that would get delivered to their elementary school, and they would take that backpack home with them filled with food, and they'd return it the next week, and we would fill it, and that's how the cycle went. We started out in the fall of 2017 with 120 students exclusively in the Welch and Center schools. That was the capacity that we could take on at that point. In March of 2018, we expanded to all 8 elementary schools throughout the city and increased the number of students we service to approximately 335 per week. When the pandemic hit, it dramatically changed our program like it did. It changed everyone's lives significantly. We no longer had a delivery mechanism for our students. We were not able to bring backpacks to schools for them to take as schools closed on March 12th was our last day of school in the spring. We instantly went to a home delivery mechanism. So now from March 13th, currently through today, and will continue for the foreseeable future, we have people drive. Currently we have 25 volunteers that deliver about 305 bags full of food to students' houses or apartments or mobile homes every Friday. That's one of the biggest changes of our program. It took these students were anonymous to us. All we knew was how many numbers of bags we needed to bring to each elementary school, and we left them with the school staff, and they would distribute them to the kids they identified. We now know their names as of March, and we know where they live. And I know Councilor Turco brought up senior housing and the lack of senior housing or affordable senior housing in the city. I just want to give you a quote that I received from Corey Jackson, who many of you know. Corey's the executive director of Citizens Inn and Haven from Hunger. And I can tell you that on the first Friday that we had to mobilize to deliver these bags of food to the students' houses, Corey was one of the drivers. And after he completed his route, he sent me a text saying, "I saw poverty today like I've never seen before." That's in the city of Peabody. That's where our students are living. He wanted to start. He brought up to me a conversation, wanted to start a conversation about what the city can do about the deplorable housing condition, particularly in the wards 2, 3, 4, and 5 areas. But that's an aside. The other big change that we realized or we experienced as a result of COVID-19 is since there was no longer school, we needed to address how students were going to eat on a daily basis, who would normally get food from our school cafeteria staff, food services staff. I, at that point, learned that we have 2,319 students in school year 2019-2020 who receive free or reduced lunch that attend the Peabody Public Schools. I'm going to repeat that number. 2,319 students that attend Peabody Public Schools in the years 2019-2020 received free or reduced lunch. That's about approximately 40% of our student population. Poverty exists within the city of Peabody, and it's significant. At that point, we mobilized with a fantastic group of volunteers that we have, and packed 2,319 bags of groceries with the help of food that we get from through Citizens in Haven from Hunger and donors who were leaving food on my front porch to the extent that I could not open my front door. Over that first weekend, we filled 2,319 bags of groceries so that we can provide those groceries as supplemental food to students who were going to come to grab and goes at the 10 schools within the city to ensure that they would have enough food during the beginning of the pandemic. We continue to provide supplemental grocery bags to this day. Over the course of the spring of 2019, we would average about 800 students who would come to the grab and goes on a weekly basis. We would pack about 1,000 bags of groceries to ensure that there were enough each week, to ensure that there were enough groceries to be provided to every single student that came to a grab and go. To this day, we continue our weekend backpack program, as I described earlier, and we deliver those to all the students' houses, and we continue to fill and provide supplemental groceries on Wednesdays at the grab and goes on the Holy Remote Day for students in Peabody.
Thank you, Jared. I'm sure we have plenty of questions. I have a question. How do you get the food? Do you get it from the food bank? Did you get it from the food bank in Boston and Citizens Inn? How do you ship the food that distance?
Yeah.
It's not 25 volunteers going in and out, right? How do you manage that?
So most of our food, we're fortunate enough to have a wonderful partnership with Citizens in Haven from Hunger. Most of the food that we provide to our students comes from the Greater Boston Food Bank, and we rely upon employees of Citizens in Haven from Hunger to transport that food. We then a group of our volunteers unload the food from the truck that comes to the Haven from Hunger, and we physically bring it upstairs. We function, our main workspace is the second floor of the Haven from Hunger, and it's been our main workspace, our primary workspace since about March of 2018. So typically on Wednesdays, on a normal Wednesday, we'll unload about 10,000 pounds of food, and we have volunteers that bring it, physically bring it from the truck up to the second level and store it up there. During the pandemic and the time I talked about when we filled 2,319 bags, we were physically moving about 45,000 pounds of food during those weeks, each week.
I'm sorry, how many pounds?
At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were starting with the supplemental grocery bags, it was about 45,000 pounds a week for about 3 consecutive weeks. In addition to the food we get from the food bank through the Haven from Hunger Citizens Inn, we do get food donated from a variety of places. I still get Amazon deliveries from people who want to donate food. We do receive monetary donations, which we use to buy food. And I do want to thank the city of Peabody. Since the inception of this program, we do receive apples from Brooksby Farm, generally starting in September and until they run out of apples, which usually is around the middle of February. And we continue to do that. I picked up apples from Brooksby Farm today. It allows us to provide fresh fruit to our students, and saves us money. When Brooksby runs out of apples, we buy them generally from a wholesaler in the Chelsea market.
So I'm just amazed at the amount of food you're moving. And you don't have your own vehicle, do you? Do you borrow a vehicle from the school department or from Citizens Inn? How do you move all, it's just a colossal amount of food you're moving, and I don't believe you have a vehicle.
No child goes, I have a vehicle.
Your program, well,
No.
everything seems to be volunteer driven and
Yeah.
accomplished, and it's quite a feat. I mean, these volunteers are wonderful, but we have the public watching here. It just seems to me as a major need for your program it's great that Citizens Inn and whomever is donating a use of a vehicle, and obviously Citizens Inn is donating, I'm going to go out on a limb, they're also donating all that space. So, and Citizens Inn is a nonprofit as well, so there just seems to be a huge need being serviced by a select nonprofit organizations, and I would think that you need some help moving that food without having to rely on other, nonprofit agencies who rely on, other things. That's just a need I'm seeing jumping out, is to moving 45,000 pounds of food is just amazing to me. And I think you need some help in that area.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. We are grateful for all the help that we get, whether it's our volunteers or volunteers that work for other nonprofits. We do rely upon other nonprofits and volunteers for vehicles. As I said, currently we have about 25 volunteers who use their own private vehicles to deliver the bags, the backpacks on weekends. We do rely upon the truck from Citizens Inn, Haven from Hunger, to bring the supplemental grocery bags to the schools for the grab and goes. I and a few of their employees and sometimes some volunteers meet us at the schools to unload the truck. We have our volunteers load the truck with the supplemental grocery bags, but it's the Haven from Hunger Citizens Inn's truck. And like I said, we're extremely grateful. On occasion, we have needed to rent a vehicle, and we've used U-Haul. We do get donations that are sometimes too large for us to pick up in a car or an SUV, and sometimes we don't have access to the Citizens Inn Haven from Hunger truck, although that's rare. So we have rented vehicles from time to time. Pre-pandemic, we were fortunate to have a vehicle from Project Mobility, the Torigian Life Center, that would assist us in bringing backpacks to schools every Friday. We're fortunate to have pre-pandemic Evans Flowers donate some vehicles that we were able to use, and some of their staff that would help us deliver bags to schools. But we certainly would benefit from a vehicle. There's no question about that.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Hockman, you and I had discussed one time when this all started. There was the need was at least the logistics of it. People were lining up, and since then, I know the need has not changed, but I think some of the logistics have been disrupted with the actual people coming to the schools, with it being the remote learning side of it. Have you seen any change in that, where people are starting to reconnect with you since school has restarted on your end?
Thank you, Councilor Melville. And thank you for all the help that you've provided to our program and support. Um, I can say that we're in a fairly frustrating period right now, particularly with the supplemental grocery bags for the grab and go and the grab and goes in general. We're not seeing the volume this fall that we saw in the spring, and I don't understand why that is. We know that the need is there. I'm not sure if it's more difficult for people to get to the grab and goes on Wednesdays in particular than it was now than it was in the spring. I don't know the answer to that, but it is frustrating that we don't feel as if we're servicing the number of people that we know need service and need food.
Yes, thank you. And I saw the need firsthand, at least in my area of the city, when this thing all started last March and has continued on. So I would agree with you. The need is there. It's the way things are going where sometimes the logistical side of it gets disrupted. But thank you for continuing to do that. I think it definitely filled a vacuum in a very difficult time, especially from March when all of this started and people were scrambling to find the ways to fill that void. So thank you very much.
Council Welton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hockman, for joining us this evening. And I've had the pleasure of being able to go and volunteer a few times. And really, I think it shows the great integrity and character of our citizens here in the city to see how many people have showed up continuously. So I appreciate all of your efforts to pull together such a huge community effort to take care of our fellow citizens. I did just have a couple quick questions. I know you have wonderful relationships with a number of different organizations that have lent, either space or vehicles and things like that. As a 501c3, I'm just curious if you have any development efforts to maybe access some of the COVID relief funding, or maybe partner with Essex County Community Foundation on some of these initiatives to help better support our students here in the city.
Thank you, Councilor Welton, and again, thank you for your support for our program and the time that you've devoted to us as well. We certainly appreciate it, and you're certainly correct that this is a program that is built on literally the backs of volunteers. We've had over 500, I would say, well over 500 volunteers, residents of the city of Peabody, who have allowed for this program to thrive the way it has and to be able to service so many young people who are in need. Without the volunteers, we really wouldn't be anything. But to answer your question, one of the areas that we do lack in terms of as an organization, I would say, is on the administrative side. It just doesn't seem like there's enough time in the day to get to the programs that you're talking about. But I'd really like to talk to you perhaps offline, or any other counselor that has some information on some of those avenues of revenue or resources, and we can either work on it together, or if you can provide me with a contact or a link or an address, I'd be happy to follow up with it.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hockman. We can definitely catch up afterwards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Welton. And along those lines, Council Welton, is there, through COVID relief and some of the funds that you had mentioned, is there assistance for administrative duties as well?
Just in my day job experience, a lot of the funding that's been available has been geared more towards direct service to provide, food, shelter, healthcare, PPE, that sort of direct service provision. But I'm sure there are opportunities out there. Again, I'm happy to talk to you, Jared, offline. But I know what a monstrous effort it is for so many people to volunteer and to help coordinate it. And I know the need is just staggering. So my thought is if you could get some administrative guidance or put this together in a way where you could secure the funding that's needed to address that issue, that would be helpful.
All right, that sounds like an excellent conversation to pick up at a later date. So good points, Councilor Welton. Councilor Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Jared, great job. As always, your eye is on the ball and you're continuing to follow through on things. But I think you hit something that really needs to be addressed. You need the formal organization. You need to get the volunteers to formally start an executive board. And I don't know if you have that already and you do have that? Okay.
Yeah, we I don't mean to interrupt you, Councilor Gould.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, through Councilor Manning Martin, yes, we do have a board of directors. We are a 501c3. We've been a 501c3 since December of 2018. We do have we do have a degree of formality, and we do process things, through a board of directors.
Okay, cool.
It's the items that Councilor Welton brought up that sometimes, I have enough time to fill out some grant applications, so that we can get some funding, whether it be for food or for winter clothing or things along those lines. But when it comes to some of the larger efforts like he's describing, there's just not, I just don't have the time or the staff. There's no staff. We don't spend any money on staff. We spend our money on food and clothes and school supplies and things like that.
Okay, my mistake. And if somebody wanted to help, how can they help?
I'll give you Captain Patton's cell phone number.
Yep.
No, my cell number is 617-281-6494. Or if someone preferred to send an email, it's nochildgoeshungryinpeabody@gmail.com. Or they can send a message either to me on Facebook or to No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody on Facebook.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. Jared, do you have any other last comments or any other need you'd like to express?
Yeah, well, I would like to make a few points if I can quickly. I talked about our program being anonymous from its inception until COVID hit. And we would send backpacks to all 8 elementary schools. What we learned after COVID closed, changed our lives and schools were closed and we were actually delivering backpacks to people's houses is the backpacks that we would primarily bring to 2 schools in particular, the Burke Elementary School and the West Memorial, were actually bags of food that were going to students who didn't live within the geographic boundaries for those 2 schools, but either went to those schools through open enrollment or through programming. And those students primarily lived either downtown or in the Route 1 corridor. So what we're just finding I think the council is going to take up some issues about housing and affordable housing, is that it was really like I said, wards 1 through 5 that were experiencing food insecurity, at least through the school department that we became aware of. The other thing I'd like to do is thank a whole bunch of people that have helped us, if I can quickly. We get help from the Parks and Rec Department, PATV, the Terigian Senior Center, as I talked about earlier, the police department, Chief Griffin, has been phenomenal to us. The fire department, Chief Daly, has been phenomenal to us. We've had a whole bunch of, volunteers. I'd like to just thank 3 of them publicly, if I may. Lucille Schifano and Kathy Vinagro have been with us since the beginning of the program. And frankly, we can't get rid of them. We've asked them to take some time off and they show up every time that we need them. In fact, they're going to make sandwiches with me tomorrow to give out to some kids this weekend. And since the pandemic has hit, I can't thank Ross Teitelbaum enough. I think most of the council knows Ross or his family. Ross has been with me in virtually every minute that I've been down at the Haven, and probably more. He's been an unbelievable resource. And lastly, if you're asking, and of course, Team Merteg. Kara was a big part in getting this program started through the school department back when she was our assistant superintendent. And in the beginning, when we struggled to get volunteers, it was Kara, her sister Kim, her mom Carol, her Aunt Mary, her Aunt Karen, and we called them Team Merteg, and they showed up every time we asked them to, and our program wouldn't be what it is without them. And in terms of a need, like I said earlier, we function almost exclusively out of the second level at the Haven from Hunger. And I know that some of the counselors have been up there working with us, volunteering with us. Some of your spouses have been volunteering with us. The conditions up there are frankly horrible. We don't have heat in the winter. We don't have, there's no ventilation, air conditioning, or fans in the summer. If it wasn't for the fire department helping us with some lighting, there was inadequate lighting, and thankfully some of the firefighters came by in their own time to help us with some lighting issues. But if the city was able to either provide some resources to the Haven, I know it's a nonprofit private entity, but we do service our residents, and if resources, whether it be in terms of tradesmen or tradespeople or funding, it would be a huge benefit. Everybody during this pandemic is having a hard time raising money. All non-for-profits are having a harder time raising money for their efforts, and we as a program that helps our students would benefit from physical improvements to the Haven Citizens in Haven from Hunger site.
Well, thank you very much, Jared, for joining us this evening, and everything that you and your program are doing, and all the volunteers that you have are really doing just phenomenal work to cover a great need that we have in the city of Peabody. And I do enjoy the 10:30 crew down at the Haven packing our bags, but it's definitely the 9 o'clock crew that does all the heavy lifting. So to the 9 o'clock crew, I say thank you. Makes the 10:30 crew job a little easier with the bags. But great program. Thank you for joining us this evening. For the folks at home, I think you've gotten quite an overview of a serious need that we have in the city of Peabody, and a lot of volunteers and some great people in the city of Peabody, to include various divisions of city government, are really stepping up to meet this need. But we certainly have a lot further to go, and during this pandemic and through it and beyond it, it's a need that we have to stay focused on. So thank you for joining us this evening, Jared, and again, thank you and your program and the volunteers for everything that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Councilor Manning Martin, thank you for the support that you provide to our program and for this platform to give us an opportunity to speak to the community at large. I appreciate the council and all the support that you've provided us and everything that you're doing. And I wish you a happy, quick meeting and a good night.
Thank you, Jared. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You've heard the motion to adjourn. Roll call on the motion.
Councilors Matsoulis. Councilor Matsoulis.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Charist. Yes. Melville.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.